We are here at the All-Star break with a record of 56-40. It has been a great start to the season for us so far. We are currently first place in the division by 1 game, but because of how the win distribution in the American League is, and because of how competitive our division is, we're also only a few games out of being out of playoff contention entirely. So it's going to be a dicey second half for sure. We've got a good team, but we have to get the job done and make the playoffs. Lineup-wise, it is hard to argue with how this team has been performing. Everyone has an OPS plus above 100 that is in the starting lineup, with the exception of Ethan Holiday and Jared Forrest, and even then they are quite close to that 100 threshold, and they have the biggest defensive responsibilities at catcher and shortstop entirely, so that's completely fair. Pitching-wise, it's been more of a mixed bag. Tyler Pitzer's been brilliant, Brett Renfroe's been good, but some of our starters like Jones, Caminiti, and Skeet, the ERAs could be lower, and the bullpen has been a trouble spot at times. Eric Segura and Jalen Nolan have ERAs above 5, but the stopper role is looking great for us. Pereira Rivera and Nuyola with ERAs around 2. One team I will be keeping an eye on in the division is definitely the Houston Astros, because even though they're in third place, this has been their division over the last couple of years, and their run differential is plus 103. That is the best in the division, so maybe a little unlucky for them through the first half of the season. Here are your All-Star Game rosters. As far as I can tell, we have 3. Tyler Pitzer makes the All-Star Game. It looks like he will be starting, given the asterisk next to his name. I think that's what that implies, that he will be the starting pitcher in this All-Star Game. In the bullpen, we have Chris Pereira in his first year coming over from Seattle. He is an All-Star. He is our closer. And also, Chris Greer makes an All-Star Game in his rookie year. This has been a big rookie year for him so far, 24 home runs, and I think it's because of that player development lab success. Moving on to the National League right here, I do want to point out Ed Contreras of St. Louis. I pointed him out a couple episodes ago as being available on the waiver wire, and just, my complaints about the waiver wire in general. But yeah, he is an all-star for the St. Louis Cardinals, who picked him up. And also Ethan Salas is having a career year for the San Diego Padres. 153 OPS plus as an elite defensive catcher. That's a pretty good look for Ethan Salas at the age of 26. Heading into the trade deadline here, I think an upgrade to the pitching might be a nice thing for us. I have a couple ideas of how to do that, and some of the solutions are going to be internal, but it is July 30th. We are 58-44, tied for the division lead with the Astros, and we're ready to make some moves to hopefully push us over the top. Gonna start with my first trade, which will also be my weirdest trade. We are trading within the division. This is a trade with the Los Angeles Angels. Mauricio Albaran is going to leave us in this deal, our 2029 fifth rounder. He's not the first middle infielder we're going to trade, but in return, we will get Josh Van Noy. Josh Van Noy, back in 2029, was the second overall pick in the draft. As you can see, the bat hasn't really developed for him. He's 24 years old, and the hitting potential still looks good. Like, if he were to able to somehow get to that 60 power, but to go from a 45 to 60, given the fact that he's already 24, unlikely. The real appeal here is the glove, the 80 infield range, the 85 infield arm, 85 on the 20 to 80 scale as a shortstop. This is an all-world generational defender, and if we can develop the bat some in the player development lab, then he's going to be a good player, right? So I think he represents a greater upside than Albaran. Here's Albaran's ratings. Better hitter, better floor, but yeah, I like Josh Van Noy. David Escobar is going to go along in this trade to the Los Angeles Angels. Just think he's kind of a tweener. Doesn't really have the power to be a great first baseman, doesn't really have the defensive chops to be a second baseman. So just kind of a tweener there. Not a great prospect for me personally, although the ratings do look nice. And then Santiago Correa, is who we will get in return. Starting pitching prospect, stuffy. 3-pitch mix isn't the greatest. It's not a great 3-pitch mix. Maybe we can work that in the player development lab as well. Only 16 years old. Already made his pro debut in rookie ball. High upside, high variance. We will go ahead and make this trade our first of 3 this deadline. Our next trade is going to be for some potential bullpen help. If it doesn't work out, not the end of the world. We'll be giving up Hento Joe, who's a minor league free agent signing for us, absolutely tearing it up in high A, probably deserves to be playing at a higher level, but honestly, not really the fit for what I look for at catcher, not a big leaguer for me. We will trade him for Connor Gatwood. Connor Gatwood is a reliever currently on the San Diego Padres. He has a 2.93 ERA for them. And the concern here is probably the movement and the control. Could allow too many home runs and too many walks. That could be an issue for him. But he's on the league minimum salary. He has less than a year of service time. He has an option left. So there is some flexibility there in terms of Connor Gatwood. So we're hoping to improve the bullpen just incrementally by making a trade as simple as this one with the San Diego Padres. And our final trade of the deadline is going to be our biggest one. We are going to be trading away Kevin Skeet, our 2028 first rounder. I think the thing that's really holding him back is that 45 control. You can see generally as a big leaguer, he's walked between 4 and 5 batters per 9 innings. That's not really what we're looking for. That's not our style. We'd rather have a guy who, if anything, puts the ball in play more because we generally have a pretty good defense. So I don't think he's necessarily a fit for us in that regard. More on that later. Also featured in this trade is Daniel Arana, who was our 2029 first rounder. I've already been kind of on the record of saying this guy's a bust. Some guys have kind of passed him on that middle infield prospect excitement depth chart, including Liddell Hungo. And then also featured in this trade are Mike Blossman, 2027 10th rounder, Brenton Penfield, 2029 9th rounder, and Jody Parker, 2027 19th rounder. These guys are all kind of quad A role players to me. It's great that they've, outperformed their draft slot, but I don't really see them as everyday big leaguers, any of them really, besides maybe Kevin Skeet. So in doing this swap, we'll be trading with the Chicago White Sox, who we've traded with before. We got Dave Sochi from them. This time we're going to get Alexis Cisneros. A 25-year-old starting pitcher. I like the control potential. Already 55, could be 60. Let's get the ball in play. I like the pitch mix. He's got a lot of pitches. He's having a good season so far. He's made 21 starts. His ERA is 3.73. He's been worth 2.5 F4. This is a good guy to get in the rotation. We'll also get Dante Golson, who is simply their closer in AAA. Just some extra depth there. But yeah, this is a big trade. We're going to move on from Kevin Skeet. We're going to move on from Daniel Arana, a couple former first rounders. But we're going to get a great pitcher in Alexis Cisneros. Cisneros will slot into the rotation for us, but I also have some ideas as far as the bullpen goes because we've really wanted to improve this bullpen. One idea I have is to put Cam Caminiti back in the bullpen at least for the next month or so, but until then we're going to need a left-handed starter to replace him in the rotation. Who could that possibly be? We'll start by optioning Eric Segura to AAA. His ERA is 6. We may have seen the last of him considering he's ARB eligible next season. And the corresponding call-up will be Mike Drake, who has pitched to a 3.72 ERA in AAA thus far this year. He will join the rotation, only 21 years of age, our 2029 second rounder, the number 70th ranked prospect in the game. Braylon Doughty is out of options, so we'll have to waive and DFA him to make room for Gatwood, while Van Noy will be added to the 40-man roster and moved to AAA for now. So here's what the rotation and bullpen will look like for now. Let's go win this division. It is time for our August 1st prospect check-in. The guy we like the most in our international complex is David Morel, who we think projects as a good third baseman. We signed him for $3 million out of Venezuela. Don't think he'll make his pro debut this year. That'll have to wait till next year. No worries, he's still only 16 years old. One guy who is making his pro debut and is definitely making waves is a starting pitcher. And that starting pitcher is not Esteban Antonio, though that is a nice scouting discovery we've had. It is Alejandro Ambriz. Alejandro Ambriz is 17 years old. He is already the number 92 ranked prospect in all of Major League Baseball. We signed him for $1.9 million last winter. He's had a good debut so far, pitching-wise, just putting up good numbers in rookie ball at the very young age of 17. This is someone who I'm suddenly very excited about. This is a great pitching prospect for us. We haven't produced a lot from our international free agency classes, at least at the big league level. In fact, I don't think we've produced a single big leaguer. But this is a guy worth getting excited about. I think he'll be one to watch as we progress throughout the years. Still only in rookie ball for now. You can see we have some of our new draft picks starting to trickle in. Jesus Mayorga was our second rounder, a high school third baseman. Our first rounder was Steve DeBona. He will start in A-ball. He has already made his pro debut, played in a couple of games. Dakota Ralston, the relief prospect we talked about, only 20, doing well in high A. I don't think he'll get the promotion to double A, though. No need to rush him. He is only 20 years old. In fact, the only players we're really paying attention to in double A are Chris Rangel, who was our first rounder in 2031. He just got he's doing well at double A, and I think he's probably worth moving up to triple A to end the year. I think I'm going to do that. We're going to promote him to triple A Las Vegas. That's Chris Rangel. And then, so left in double A is Johan Brownlee, who I've just added to the list. He's our 2031 sixth rounder. Looks like he could be a good fourth outfielder type, just recently promoted to double A himself. So that's what we've got going on there. In AAA, we've got some guys. Devin Hicks, I promoted just now to kind of fill in the vacuum of Jared Forrest. We have him groomed as our backup catcher for years to come. I think once Connor Wong leaves us after this year, it's going to be, Devin Hicks, backup captain, catcher, defense first. I'm happy with that. I'm happy we were able to sort of have him as a throw-in on a trade. Pete Barker's down there. Liddell Hungo, who I've talked about a little bit, is there. He's a guy I'm starting to get a little bit excited about. I'm also excited about Sergio Treviso, but also with the development of Okoro and Sochi, I don't really know where he fits into that outfield because we have Chris Baker locked in at center. So yeah, we'll just have to see. We do have some minor injuries. Pete Barker had some elbow inflammation. Not sure when he'll be back. These guys have some short-term injuries as well. But overall, I'd say the news from the farm system is largely positive. But we're ready to move forward at the major league level and hopefully make the playoffs. Mike Drake in his first start pitched a good game. 6 innings pitched, 0 runs allowed. Ullola picks up the save. August 5th here. This team has gotten hot post-trade deadline. They have won 6 in a row. They currently have a 3-game lead over the Los Angeles Angels in the division, but it's still going to be very tight as far as the playoff race goes. I mean, the Rangers right now at 58 and 49 are outside of the playoff picture. That could be brutal for them. But yeah, we've won 6 in a row, including a 17-6 drubbing of the St. Louis Cardinals. The bad news is Termarr Johnson is injured with a delayed diagnosis. He is wrecked. It is an arm injury, we know that, so we knew he was going to be prone to injuries. We'll just have to see what it is. I think we have options if he is indeed out for the rest of the year, but he has been key for us. He has a 389 on-base percentage. I would hate to lose him. Let's see what happens. We win at St. Louis, or excuse me, against St. Louis, so that's our 7th win in a row, but still no word on Termarr Johnson. We have an off day today. Braylon Doughty just needs to go back to AAA. That's not really the news we wanted to get. Termarr Johnson, it's a dead arm. He'll only be out 1 week. I think what I will do is actually add him to the injured list, so he'll miss 10 days in that regard. You may disagree. That's fine, but I'm going to add him to the IL. That is the 10-day IL. Actually, it's 8 days because it can be retrospective to his injury, so that works for us. And that's going to mean that Jeremy Okoro is going to be an everyday player during that stretch. He's been a platoon bat for us, and that's fine by me. I think Okoro is ultimately going to replace Johnson in the long term for this team. So very quickly, this is how we will line up until Termarr Johnson gets back into the mix. Dave Sochi will move to right field, and he will bat second. Okoro will play left field. We're now at 8 in a row in terms of the wins. Let's see how far this streak can go. We win again, back-to-back wins in extras versus Toronto. 9 in a row now. A 5-game lead is what we've opened up on the Los Angeles Angels. 10 in a row. We sweep the Jays, and now we're going to face the division rival Astros. This could be a huge series right here. And we get a win there, too. 11 in a row. We are just... Ooh, but we finally lose. The Astros do beat us in a game started by Jared Jones. He takes the L. Let's see the final game of that series. And we get a win. So crucially, our lead is now 5.5 games. We are 69 and 45 as of August 13th. Mike Drake has kicked off his career very nicely. In his first 3 starts, he's yet to allow an earned run. I might have misspoken a little bit when I said he pitched 6 innings of scoreless ball in his debut. He did allow 2 runs. It's just that those were unearned runs. So through his first 3 starts, no runs allowed. And the good news is on August 15th, Termarr Johnson is back. We are 70 and 45. Things are looking good in the Bay Area. Unfortunate news for Mike Drake here. He has a strained abdominal muscle. That is a 5 to 6 week injury. Given that it is August 25th, that will likely end his regular season. We will put Cam Aniti back into the rotation for now. The corresponding call-up back to the bullpen will be Braylon Doughty, who cleared waivers. September 1st, we are 78 and 53, 5.5 game lead in the division. It is time for roster expansion. We get 2 more spots from here on out. My call-ups are going to be Pete Barker and Danny Kennerly. September 12th, Pete Barker has an injury. You'll recall he was our call-up for roster expansion, also made his big league debut this year, made 3 starts, and they were 3 pretty good starts. Unfortunately, he is fragile, and he's always kind of been fragile, so radial nerve elbow decompression surgery is what they're calling this. Is a 4-month recovery, and you can just see from the injury history here. I really like this guy. We got him in the Vinny Pasquantino trade, but he does tend to suffer some injuries, so he'll be added to the 60-day injured list. Good news for him, though, he'll be added as a big leaguer, so he'll get paid. The call-up in this case is going to be Eric Segura for what could potentially be his last ride as an Oakland A, with arbitration incoming this offseason. September 18th, we are 89 and 57. I'm so proud of how this team has played, especially post-trade deadline. This has been a wonderful year. The magic number is 7. Our lead over the Astros now is 9.5. Things are looking great. And when things are looking great, you can afford to be a little bit careful. And Daniel Cuvée has had this sort of nagging, bruised foot. It's been a day-to-day injury. He has a setback. The recovery time for that is now 1 week. And when you have the lead that we do in the division, you know what? We can give him a rest. So I'm going to try to do the smart thing. I'm going to place Daniel Cuvée on the 10-day injured list. This is going to allow Tamar Johnson to DH, so that's another good outcome from that, and it'll let Okoro get another run as a full-time player in that corner outfield spot. So this is how we'll line up for now in an attempt to keep everyone healthy going into October. One thing I will point out is that since being traded to us, Alexis Cisneros hasn't been great, at least in terms of run prevention, but if you look at his ratios in terms of strikeouts, walks, and home runs, it's actually not so bad. With a 5-2 win over the Texas Rangers on September 24th, we have increased our record to 93-60. Tyler Pitzer gets the win, his 14th of the season, and with a 10-game lead on the Houston Astros and 9 games left to play, we have officially clinched. We are not just going to the postseason, we are going to win this division, and we are going to most likely have a first-round bye. We will not have to play until the division series round. Our final 3 games of the regular season will come against the Tigers. They are 1 game better than us in the American League, so this could be potentially our chance to clinch the best record in the American League, and thus all of Major League Baseball. That'd be interesting. Let's just see what happens. We're going to lose to them. We're going to win. And on the final game, we win. We are going to the playoffs, of course. Here are your final standings on the year. We both win 99 games. We are tied for the best record in Major League Baseball. An unbelievable turnaround from a team that had the worst record just 2 seasons ago. This was a great team. This is a great season, and I'm glad we're going into the postseason with a really good squad. And for the most part, we are completely healthy. That is the good news as well. We finished 4th in OPS and 1st in FIP. I think those are probably the 2 most important stats you can look at, and we did quite well in both of those categories. 657 runs against, 814 runs scored. That led to 99 wins on the season. I'll now review the individual performances of the players while also talking about who made the playoff roster. So what you're looking at right here, this is the playoff roster, and this is how we will line up in those upcoming playoff games. We will play those games as we do opening day. So we will get to see them. We will get to see the action unfold on the field. That'll be next episode. This is a sort of year in review, though. Great year for us offensively, best offense we put together. Cuvée had a nice year. Tovar had a nice second half. Tamar Johnson, 632 plate appearances, not bad for a guy who is wrecked. Got on base a lot, 391 on base percentage. But the stars of the show, Dave Sochi and Chris Greer offensively were just unbelievable. Chris Greer with a 4.6 WAR season as a primarily DH, 45 home runs, 195 hits. This has to be the AL Rookie of the Year, right? It just has to be. He was phenomenal. Dave Sochi was also great. Was not a full-time player all year, somewhat of a platoon situation with him, and also injured to start the year, but a 147 OPS plus for WAR. He will be a full-time player next year. Let's look at the team there. Mark Cox is someone I was happy about, just a good league average third baseman. We needed that. Ethan Holiday, he slowed down. He had a great start, but then he ended up slowing down, but still the swing of being -1 WAR to +1 WAR is not to be understated. He may play third base for us next year. We'll just have to see. That may be a better fit for him defensively. Jared Forrest is really the only guy who didn't hit, but that is very much a work in progress for him. I think he will hit in the long term, and he played great defense at the catcher position. Moving on to the pitching here. Pitching was good. I'm going to have Mike Drake on the playoff roster. We don't know when he will be ready to pitch again, but I'm going to have him on the playoff roster. The guy left off is Chase Lee. So Chase Lee not making the playoff roster. His ERA this year was close to 6, but here's a look at some of our top pitchers. Pitzer and Renfroe were both great. Pitzer, picked up right where he left off. He had another great year as an Oakland A. He's been pretty much dominant ever since coming over from St. Louis. Brent Renfroe, this was his first year as an Oakland A. He was brilliant. Those two will be in the rotation along with Cisneros and Jared Jones. That is a 4-man rotation in the playoffs. And here is how the bullpen will align itself. The stopper role was good for us. Ulloa had a good year. David Rivera, who we traded for from Seattle, had a good year, sort of the quasi-setup man, and Chris Pereira, our quasi-closer, did an excellent job. His real strength is just that he doesn't allow the long ball. He allowed 2 home runs in 81 innings. That adds up to a 1.65 ERA. So we're obviously excited about this team. We will see who we're facing in the playoffs. It was always going to be an AL West team given how the bracket ended up. It was the Rangers versus the Astros in the wildcard series. The Rangers won that 2-0, so we will face the Texas Rangers in the next episode. They have a great offense. They scored 863 runs this year. You look at them, Yunki Yao, who was, I believe, the Rookie of the Year last year. He comes out, hits 44 more home runs this year. He's their 5-hole hitter. Wyatt Langford is a stud. They have Corbin Carroll, who they signed to a big contract. He is a stud as well. Luis Villacana, who is a center fielder for them. Looks like he is a current stud and also a future stud, perhaps even more so, and Evan Carter, their leadoff hitter. So it's a dangerous lineup. The advantage we're going to have is in the pitching because they do not have the pitching to contend with us. Dustin May, Logan Gilbert, those guys are 35 years old. They've seen better days. Edward Cabrera, Adam Kloffenstein. So it's really just not the greatest rotation or bullpen apart from Brandon Eisner, their closer, but they're going to have to get it to him. So the advantage will be with us in terms of the pitching. The advantage will be with the Rangers in terms of the hitting. It will be a best of 5, and we are looking forward to it in the next episode.